Hi everyone, this is the top 10 most undervalued elements on the women's floor exercise. I hope you like the video and take the time to subscribe the channel. The butterfly is a relatively common skill in the men's floor exercise, but extremely rare in women's artistics and rhythmic gymnastics. For being original and not very easy to perform, it could easily be a C-rated element on women's floor, considering that even a leg up hop full is worth a C and it seems so much easier to do. Another important point is that a rhythmic gymnast earns 5/10 for competing a butterfly, which is a higher value than 3/10 of the leaps that are performed in both disciplines and are C-level skills in artistic gymnastics, that is, if the split ring leap is rated a C in artistic and it's also awarded with 5/10 points in rhythmic gymnastics, why couldn't a butterfly be worth a C in artistic gymnastics too? It was even a C skill in the Code of Points from 2013 to 2016, but even though it hasn't been overused at all, its difficulty value was decreased to B in 2017. The 3.5 twist is a tumbling skill that was debuted in a major competition by a female gymnast in 2001. Romanian Carmen Ionescu competed it at the American Team Cup and, a couple years later, it was also performed by Spanish Patricia Moreno. Not many gymnasts have done this difficult element since then, and even fewer have managed to land it completed and controlled. But there is a rule in the Women's Gymnastics Code of Points that allows a gymnast to receive credit for tumbling skills with incomplete turns as long as she is able to continue into another element, through a direct acrobatic connection. This rule is quite controversial. It could be more detailed and specific. After all, what would be the minimum degree of turn for a salto to be considered 3.5 twist? If this confusing rule were removed from the Code of Points, the 3.5 could easily be a G-level skill, since it's an acrobatic element that has the same difficulty value as a double-double and a double layout full in men's gymnastics. The double Arabian layout is an extremely rare and complex tumbling element, having been done by a few male gymnasts and only one female gymnast, Brazilian Daiane dos Santos, was able to perform it in competitions. Her first attempt was at the 2003 DTB Cup Winners' Final, but she was only able to throw it successfully and officially bear her name at the 2008 Olympic Games, after some not very successful attempts. Between the years of 2009 and 2016, the risky move was worth a G, which is absolutely ridiculous considering its real difficulty. Even with FIG, the International Gymnastics Federation, increasing the difficulty value of the skill to an H in 2017, the element has not yet been performed by any other female gymnast in competitions, only in training. Wouldn't it be interesting to increase its difficulty value again by one letter? The Shushunova full is a jump element that was rated a D in the Women's Gymnastics Code of Points from 1997 to 2000, but it still hasn't become a common skill. It just dropped off the floor routines since the year 2001, when it started to be a C element. Nowadays it's at just a B value, which is a very low value considering its rarity and difficulty. It doesn't make much sense for a popa, which is a straddle jump with full turn, to be a C-valued skill while a Shushunova full, which is basically the same jump but with landing to front-lying support, has a lower difficulty value, being that it is clearly more complex and much rarer. The double Arabian pike is not a very common acrobatic element in women's gymnastics. Imagine it being done with an additional half twist. Brazilian gymnast Lorraine Oliveira managed to debut this innovative skill at the 2021 Doha World Cup and it was therefore named after her, after not having a successful attempt to do it at the Pan American Championships of the same year. An extremely rare acrobatic skill that took almost a century to be first performed and yet it is worth only a F? The figures don't add up to me. This turn element is somewhat controversial in artistic gymnastics, because the Bulgarian gymnast, Leni Madsen, apparently had intention of performing a PENCHÉ turn. But the description which International Gymnastics Federation gave of her new skill is quite different. Besides the fact that the illustration of the element doesn't look a lot like the one used to describe a PENCHÉ turn in rhythmic gymnastics. The intent of the gymnast is one thing, but FIG's vision with respect to it is another and closer to that of an arabesque pivot, which is also performed in the rhythmic category. Which rotation element is most similar to Madsen's new skill in your opinion? Anyway, A single rotation in arabesque is worth 3/10 of difficulty and the one in PENCHÉ is an element of value 0.4 points in rhythmic gymnastics. They are both above the difficulty value of only 2/10 given to the Bulgarian gymnast's new skill. The front 2.5 twist is an acrobatic skill that is quite rare on women's floor exercise, having been performed for the first time by Sierra Saupuner at the 1997 U.S. Junior Championships. Since then, very few female gymnasts have managed to do it successfully, having been submitted by Romanian gymnast Sabina Cojocar to be named after herself at the 2001 World Championships and mistakenly attributed to her teammate Silvia Stroescu for more than a decade. It is one of the very few elements in the women's artistic gymnastics code of points that has the same difficulty value as in the men's artistic gymnastics. A very rare tumbling move, which took more than 7 decades to be debuted and submitted for approval, and yet which has the same difficulty rating as in the men's gymnastics? Clear evidence that it is undervalued and could easily be worth a F. The double front pike is another acrobatic element that is extremely rare among female gymnasts, being first attempted by American Tia Orlando in 2002, but having been officially named after some gymnast only at the 2015 World Championships by also American Brenna Dowell. We can count on the fingers of one hand the number of gymnasts who have successfully performed it to this day. It's a F-level skill, but it could easily be rated a G. It is worth an E in men's artistic gymnastics, only 1/10 below the difficulty value it has in women's gymnastics, while there are tumbling elements in women's that are rated up to 3/10 above the values in men's. The scorpion or pirouette with free leg held backward and upward with both hands is probably the most difficult turning shape on one foot ever performed by an artistic gymnast. The double scorpion turn was debuted by Romanian Catalina Panor at the 2006 European Championships, but at the time unfortunately she couldn't name it after herself. Only 12 years later, another Romanian gymnast, Iulia Berar, was able to name this dance skill after successfully completing it at the 2018 Youth Olympic Games. It is a D-rated element and is also performed by rhythmic gymnasts. The most curious thing of all is that a double scorpion turn is worth a value of 0.5 in rhythmic gymnastics, that is, 1/10 higher than it is in artistic gymnastics, exposing how inconsistent is the fact that it is not at least an E-level skill in the artistic discipline. Bulgarians Elizabet Vasileva and Leni Madsen are the only other artistic gymnasts to perform this original turn element in competition to date, which are a former rhythmic gymnast and a former cheerleader. I can't put into words how unfair it is that the front triple full is a F-rated element in women's and men's artistic gymnastics. To date, this ambitious skill has been performed by only one female gymnast, Puerto Rican Andrea Maldonado, who debuted only in late 2019, at the Cottbus World Cup. The first male gymnast to compete this risky acrobatic element was Japanese Kenzo Shirai, only 6 years previously. It's a very rare move even in men's gymnastics and it doesn't make any sense that it isn't valued a G or even an H on women's floor exercise, since there are E-level skills on men's floor that are worth an H on women's. In addition, a front triple twist has the same difficulty value as a double twisting double layout in men's gymnastics, while this tumbling element in the women's category, called the Moors, is worth an I. Note that there are far more gymnasts who have competed the Moors on women's floor than female gymnasts who have even attempted the Maldonado in training. So it's not coherent at all that the impressive front triple full carries only the 5th highest degree of difficulty in women's artistic gymnastics, having the same difficulty value of elements such as a double layout, which have already been performed by hundreds or even thousands of female gymnasts.